Welcome to Design Speaks, the podcast that helps you discover uncommon inspiration, take control of your creativity, and create work that gets noticed. I'm your host, Brandy C. Joining me is my co-host, Julie Hyder. This week, we're going to be talking about personal marketing strategies. I know that sounds fancy, but it's really not a big deal. So stay tuned for that coming up later in the show. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Brandy.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
So we recorded this one, which it's been like, 6 weeks maybe from the last time we recorded? So it feels like it's been a whole new season, but this is our last episode for this season.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. It's like the grand finale.
We need like some fancy, like big band music to do like a ta-da sound. So I have a question for you. When you graduated from college, how did you present your final like portfolio presentation? Was it like CD? Was it a PowerPoint? I
was actually really fancy and I did a website that I built myself.
Ooh, showing us all up.
It was very basic, but I did actually like create it myself. So
was it in Flash?
That's how I did. No, it was just basic like HTML stuff.
Okay. So our audio listeners are not going to get this amazing bonus. I will try my best to explain how this looks, but I found my CD portfolio I put together. There is a Flash presentation on said CD with the quote unquote logo I designed for myself when I graduated. And our YouTube audience is going to be very, very impressed by this.
Oh, it's fancy.
Okay.
It's very like Lord of the Rings-esque, which is totally fits you.
Okay. So, this has so many things wrong with it. Like I could do an episode on just this thing. But the point of this is that this was part of our self-promotion. Like this was part of the senior year thing as a creative. They teach you like you need to learn how to market yourself. However, they only go so far, right? It's like you need to learn how to make a portfolio and your resume. They don't teach you anything else. Yeah. And to be fair, they don't even really teach you like client interaction or what, very little.
No.
Very little, if any. They teach you how to interview and that's it. So what my direction was for this, I was told that it needed to be a reflection of me. And so I took that super literally. I have an Elvish tattoo and this is top, like if you were to put those things together, it says fearless in Elvish. And so I thought, well, and my favorite colors are red and black. Not thinking at all about what these said about me. This sort of looks like I should be designing for like Kiss, like the band. So I thought this would be fun to bring because it was like, man, we're talking about personal marketing strategies. And when I left college, this was all the strategy I had, literally, was like make a CD of your work and like hand it out to potential employers. And like I have this little thing that says music graphics, logo design, identity design, print media, and package design. I'm like, that's not anything. Nobody cares about that. It doesn't even really show my personality.
Yeah, that's totally though what you're like, what the basic classic what's expected of you kind of stuff is, even though it doesn't share any real information.
It's not real world help. So all that to say, that is what we're going to be talking about today is personal marketing strategies, things that actually really work. But first, Julie, what have you been up to? What have you been working on?
Well, I just got through a crazy like fall and early winter season for elopements, which it was really awesome. It was super busy, which was great, but also, man, I'm tired.
I just wanted to jump into all of your Instagram stories, like be a little mouse in your pocket. Please take me with you.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I got to work with so many awesome couples and we went to some really cool locations, especially for like kind of fall stuff. I kind of followed fall as it went through like different areas of the US. Like I started in Colorado where it's a lot earlier, and then came to northern New Mexico, and then made it all the way through like kind of the last end of fall here in New Mexico. So it was really fun.
I saw that you went someplace where there were no trails, and I was very
Yes.
intrigued by this. I'm like, whoa, Julie literally blazing her own trails as an
Yes.
elopement photographer.
I literally bought a like handheld GPS for that elopement because I was like, I have to track like the trail that I'm making, or else I'll never find it again. And also like I have to, make it back to the car.
You may as
So,
well
yeah,
be on the moon.
yeah, it looked like the moon. It was in the desert, and it was very like moony-esque.
That was here, right? In New Mexico?
Yes, it was here in New Mexico. Yeah.
We'll have to chat later about where that is because it was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. What have you been inspired by lately?
Oh man. So I guess I just been feeling the nostalgia, I guess. A few weeks back I went and spent some time with my parents, and they had my old yearbooks.
Oh man.
Well, my mom was a PE teacher at the high school where I went to school. So as a high schooler, that sounds like the worst thing ever, but I actually didn't mind. And she had all the yearbooks, and so I'm flipping through them. And so I've been actually really delving deep, like doing a lot of self-reflection during this quarantine about like understanding my own voice as I put it out there as a creator, but specifically as a content creator. So I've been trying to like merge what my voice is when I actually like design things, as opposed to like what is my voice when I'm making content to share here or on Instagram or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking back at my yearbooks and seeing my personal style then, and like thinking about how it's evolved into something different, but how I really can't discount the things that have been lifelong inspiration for me.
Yeah.
And, I maybe don't literally wear the things that inspire me, like cartoon characters, or I used to have this rainbow sweater that my boyfriend just despised, and it looked so hippie and weird, but I've always loved rainbows and color, and it was almost like a really big light bulb moment for me to look back through those yearbooks and see like how I've changed but how I've not changed. And it was a little bit of like a confidence booster of like, this is still you. Like you still have these traits, you still have these things, and finding ways to like incorporate the things that I love and the way I thought back then about myself into my life now, because it's a little hard sometimes. And I think you get lost in the day-to-day as a creative and doing, especially as a business owner, doing like checking emails and invoicing and all those really sad things. And you start to like lose your voice a little bit. And so it was very inspiring. It sounds so bizarre to say like, look at me, I inspired me. But I was inspired by
Brandy,
myself.
what inspired you this week? Myself.
I inspired myself. 15-year-old Brandy gave 39-year-old Brandy a bit of inspiration into remembering like to embrace like that inner voice that I still have, that I've always had, and that I sometimes push away because I'm afraid it's a little bit bold for people. So I've come to the point where I'm trying to hone my own voice into being feisty and more colorful and all those things that I had then. And even when I made that crazy CD cover for my portfolio. So yeah, so that's what's been kind of on my mind a lot lately. So as far as music, I have been listening to a lot of new things, but I will share one of the songs that I've been listening to with you now. So this week I've been listening to, it's called I'm Only Human and parentheses I Want to Get Out by a singer named Maggie Rose. I was recommended this song by someone I follow, John Acuff, on Instagram. And she is a musician from Nashville, which is, the heart of music. And she wrote this song during quarantine. And I really appreciated the vulnerability. Some of her lyrics are something like, the music's gone silent. It feels like I'm dying. Seems like forever since we were together. And it's really good to hear someone that's like actually expressing a little bit more of like the inner turmoil that a lot of us are going through right now. I think at the beginning of quarantine, a lot of us were very much like, let's just, see the best of this and try and make what we can. And not that we shouldn't do that, but I think that there also needs to be a balance between being real about the way we're feeling about things and owning those feelings of loneliness or overwhelm. And it's not a slow song, as you heard. It's a nice upbeat, but there's a lot of emotion to her voice. And I really just appreciated how she expressed what a lot of us are really going through right now. So that's the song, and I hope you guys check it out. So did you get a chance to listen to the song at all, Julie?
I didn't yet.
Okay. Well, when you do, I think you're going to like it.
Cool.
So let's talk. So we're going to talk today about personal marketing strategies. So when I say personal marketing strategies, as a creator, as a creative, where does your brain go first when you think about that?
I think, getting yourself out there, as they say, whatever that means. But yeah, just like how and where you're going to be trying to market yourself, whether you're like doing freelance or you have a full-time business that's you and your brand.
Yeah. So I just want to be really clear that a lot of the things we're going to talk about today are aimed at creatives that make things. Now, there's definitely going to be a lot of overlap if you are a business owner. But this is primarily aimed at creatives who own their own business, to freelancers, to maybe creatives that have a side hustle doing something else while their day-to-day job is something else. And we really wanted to kind of tie back a lot of these things and tie a neat little bow around it over a lot of the things that we talked about. So I'm just going to have to look at my little paper here because I don't have all this memorized. I'm going to just briefly give a little rundown of all the stuff we talked about this season, because it's been it's actually like a lot of heavy actionable content. So this may be one of those seasons you need to listen to a couple of times because there's just so much and your brain just can't hold it all in. But episode 1, we talked about identifying your brand voice, and all of these things were very strategic on our part. So we definitely planned out the layers of this cake, so to speak, to make sure that everything tied together. Chapter 2 was ideal client persona and crafting the target story for your person. We also talked about using music to help your productivity. Talked with Eric Williams from StoryBrand on the importance of story and focusing on the problems of your target audience. Chapter 5 was helping your people find you and not being the weird Best Buy guy knocking on your door, if you recall that. We also talked about having a color toolkit and using color in your brand, in your work. We talked with Natalie Frank about pricing your work for creatives. We also talked about leveling up using feedback and how to not be afraid of that feedback. We talked with Andy J. Pizza about way too many things for me to tell you here. You just have to go listen to that fun bonus episode. Chapter 9 was showing the work you want to get. Chapter 10 was how to communicate clearly with clients. And then we talked with the awesome lawyers about file rights and other legal stuff. And today we are kind of bringing that all together for like a real marketing strategy. I'm going to take a drink of coffee. Take it from here.
I literally, like, every time you read off like a different episode, I was like, ooh, that's a good one. Ooh, yeah, that was a really good one. Ooh, they should definitely listen to that one.
I should definitely listen. Excuse me. Excuse my voice, guys. I've had a sore throat all week, so I may sound like a pre-adolescent boy here a couple of times during this episode. But yeah, honestly, I have gone through like past content and gone like, that sounds really good. I should listen to that. Because I don't even remember what I said.
I was seriously thinking this morning, I was like, I need to go back and listen to those and like actually implement them, because just because I said something myself doesn't mean I'm doing it.
We all need to take our own medicine sometimes.
Yes.
It doesn't always reflect that, you know, we by no means are perfect at the advice we give you guys. We are here in the trenches with you, trying so hard to do all of these things too. So just because, you know, we are quote unquote experts at this, like, that doesn't mean that we don't struggle and that we don't, you know, have to put off recording for an hour and a half because things weren't going right this morning. So, okay. So let's talk about marketing strategies. So the first thing that I want to point out to everyone is obviously listen to these past episodes, because a lot of what we're going to say is going to make a lot more sense if you do listen.
It all ties in. Like, I think every one of those is an important piece of the puzzle, and you really need to look at all of them before you get started, because otherwise it's going to be it's going to be harder than it needs to be.
Right. Because we aren't going in depth into any of these things that we're going to talk about for the most part. It's a lot of tying back to things and then showing you how it kind of all comes together. So I think that the first thing that you need to remember when you're trying to think about personal marketing strategies is your goals. Because what your goals are going to really determine what the strategy needs to be. If you are Julie and you want to blaze new trails as a literally adventure elopement photographer, and you know, because you know your target audience, that they mostly find you via like Google searches and looking for nice pictures on Instagram or Pinterest, then you know that those are the places you need to show up. However, if you are maybe an illustrator and you want to create designs that can be printed on products, you might want to promote yourself on places like Society6 or Redbubble, where you can literally put a pattern on a pillow, or, you know, a painting on a tapestry, and all these sorts of things. So it really depends on what your goals are as a creator.
Yeah, it's going to save you time and potentially even money too, if you're actually like paying for a listing or, you know, an ad in some sort of printed media or something like that. I hear this question so often in the wedding industry through all different creatives, is like, oh, is it worth it to, you know, advertise with Wedding Wire or this local magazine or something like that? And that's not like a yes or no question. Right. That's just blanket. Like, my experience may not be your experience, because there's different layers to that of like, is your target market actually there? Because if they're not, then don't bother. Yeah. And if they are, then you also have to communicate with them well, because if you just throw up your logo and some pictures of your work, that's not selling to your best ability. That's not really like convincing them and getting them on board. And so they're just going to keep flipping by or scrolling by. So I always kind of laugh when I see those questions. I'm like, well, it's not yes or no. Maybe. And you have to figure that out. Right. Yeah. There's so many aspects that you have to look into.
I don't have the answer you want. How about that? I can't answer that for you. Yeah. I think that, you know, personal marketing strategies for me is, you know, just marketing strategy in general is very similar to what we do as designers. It's just a problem to solve. You have similar metrics that there's really 2 or 3 basic things when you're designing. You need to have a problem to solve, you need to have a goal, and you need to have a target audience. Like, obviously there's a lot of little intricacies in each of those things, but if you know those three things, you can come up with a strategy. If you don't know what problem you're solving, yeah, you're going to show the client 10 different ideas and it's never going to hit. And so you're just going
Yeah.
to have quote unquote clients from hell because you don't actually even know what problem you're trying to solve. So those same kind of things apply to your personal like marketing strategies, because if you have a goal and you know like who you're talking to and you know your strengths also, and we did talk about that in another episode, but knowing your strengths too, because if for some reason you see that you want to teach someone something, that is your goal. And so then you know that your people are probably listening to podcasts, but they may also be on YouTube. Then you can kind of go to that third metric and be like, okay, but am I good on camera? Do I want to be on camera? Do I care about, being on YouTube? And if not, perhaps a podcast might be a better solution. Or, if you don't want to do something so fancy, maybe Instagram TV might be better if you want to start teaching. Or TikTok, like if you want to be really playful. And so that's where you kind of got to play to your strengths and look back to your goals and your target.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So another thing to think about is I just wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of promotion, and this is where I think you're going to come in a lot, the kind of promotion and how that looks on different platforms. So I'm going to defer to you for just a few minutes so you can chat a little bit about your experience with your own self-promotion on, say, Instagram.
Yeah. I think that in my journey of using social media, specifically Instagram, it has changed significantly when I did know who my target market was and what the story I was trying to tell them was. And like taking it as a perspective of like, I'm not here to show myself and how great I am, but I'm here to help them. And my captions went from like, I would just be like, what do I say about this? It's pretty. It was a pretty wedding. It was,
here's another gorgeous couple. Ta-da!
Yeah, exactly. And I just didn't know what to say. And that's not saying that it was beautiful doesn't really like do anything,
Right.
And I just
you're not just trying to give people fodder for their like mood board.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just was very like it felt very shallow, and I didn't know how to like amp things up. And every time I would go to post, I would just be like, "What do I say about this?" And so being more in tune to who my target market was and that I'm telling their story, not my own, all of that. Suddenly my captions are like paragraphs instead of a couple of sentences.
Yeah. Then you have to edit yourself down because you then have so much to say to your target audience. Yeah. And you're like, okay, wait, they may not read all of this if it's a book.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is a miniature blog post. I just put in the captions.
Yes.
But yeah, so now I don't struggle with that issue as much because I'm like, oh man, they're like, if Brandy, you're coming to me and saying like, I want to elope, but I don't know anything, like tell me everything, then I could talk about so many topics. Yeah. And that's basically how it is on Instagram. I'm just like, wow, like I could talk about all kinds of things. And so, man, that has just like simplified things so much for getting out there on social media. And I feel like it's more effective. Like right now with the Instagram algorithms, like people, sharing, like sending your post and saving your post is going to get you like the most quote unquote engagement.
Even though it's not that like as a sidebar that they're starting to shift over from like the liking metric to how many people save and share.
Yeah, it's pushing you to make more valuable content, which is what we all need anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So with that in mind, like if you just say, this is a beautiful wedding, or you just say like, this client was fun to work with for this illustration or whatever, like something super basic like that, like then that puts all of the pressure on what the actual photo is or the whatever image or video you put in. It puts all the pressure on that to be content that is worth saving or sending. But when you have really great captions, then if that's helpful information, people are going to want to save that for later. And I literally have had like strangers come to my Instagram and say like, wow, this was really helpful. And like all like looking back through all of your stuff, even from like 6 months ago, they were like, I learned so much. This was really helpful. And so that's the kind of content that I want that is going to like stay beneficial for people and not just be, oh, that was a pretty picture.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and not everybody has this as a strength, but if you find that your strategy requires you to be on Instagram based on your goals and based on like where your audience exists, then you may have to practice writing a little bit because there really is a formula, and I hate to say it, and as much as I love process, there are some times where I'm just like, this sounds really forced. But there's, speaking of strategies, there's formulas to even how you write a caption. Because in order to get people into the meat of your content, you've got to have something in that first sentence that catches their eye. You got to have a hook. Yeah, you've got to have the hook. And then, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's like a hit. You probably remember this. It's like a HITT formula, something. And basically there's the eye-catching headline thing, then you have the body, and then you ask a question at the end to get them to want to interact with you. And so however you do that, it's taking me some practice because it feels forced a little bit at first because I just want to write. Like, I just want to say what I want to say. But then I realize that like the strategy needs to not just be what do I want to say, but how can I get people to read this because I know it can help them? And then getting them to interact with you at the end. So like, I know we're spending a lot of time on Instagram, but it is a huge, huge platform for creators.
Yeah, definitely. And once your followers get used to the fact that you're giving actually useful content, then they're going to be like excited and expecting when they see your stuff, they are going to stop and read it because they know it's not just like something fluffy that is meaningless.
Right. And so the other thing about Instagram is learning how to use your hashtags. And we talked a lot about hashtags in the SEO episode, which is really helpful. And also making sure that, and this is more like my own personal annoyance / part of my strategy, is making sure that your caption does tie into the photo somehow.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how annoyed I am by the influencers that show like a picture of them having coffee on their bed, and it has the caption has zero to do with that photo. Yeah. And I'm just like, why are you just sitting on your bed? And what does that have to do with you traveling to Bali? Like, I don't care. So like, it needs to tie in because then you not only get like the left brain activity of the reading and understanding your content, but then it connects with the right brain because it's the creative, it's the pretty, it's the visually appealing. And then when those come together, it actually creates that little spark of understanding between your client and what you're saying. And that is the ultimate goal, is for them to understand what you're trying to say and to want more of it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So let's move on to, and I guess we could talk a little bit about, Instagram is just taking all the things from everybody. They're taking some stuff from TikTok and they're taking some stuff from YouTube. So just as a sidebar, we already sort of touched on it, but another strategy for you that you would need to think about is what elements on Instagram are you going to spend the most time on?
That's true.
Because there's Instagram TV, which is a little bit longer form video. There's the short, like Reels, TikTok-esque thing, which I've yet to even
Those can be extremely powerful. I was just talking with a friend. I want to say she has over 10,000 followers. I'm not sure exactly. She has she has
the swipe up feature. That's what really matters.
Yeah, she has the swipe up feature. Yeah. So she's a blogger. And she made some reels recently and they have like hundreds of thousands of views. It's really amazing. And she did a really good job of them. But she put strategy into it of really thinking about like, what is it that people are going to sit there and watch for 15 or 30 seconds? And And also she was telling me like using hashtags made a big difference. So she did a lot of hashtag research on that. But we were both, the reason this conversation came up is we were both saying like how much time goes into it, even though it's such a like simple,
It's just
simple
like design.
video,
It's just like
not.
design. Simple does not mean faster. Simple just means clearer.
Yeah, but it was extremely effective for her and has been really great. So it was worth her time to think through like what shots she needed and what she was trying to show in those videos. And yeah, it was really effective, but it wasn't like she just threw it together in 10 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And I've always known that because my style traditionally as a designer has been very clean and simple. And knowing that editing down is like super hard, but it takes time.
Yeah.
Just like editing anything, editing a manuscript or, you know, anything like that, editing a movie script or literally editing a movie, like all of that takes time to get to a good product. And so like take heart that your first tries at all of this is also going to take time. I tried doing a reels like just to see how the platform worked, and all I did was like make coffee, but I know that like that was a test just to see how the platform worked. There was zero strategy behind it. I don't think people want to see me make my French press. That does not help them with their creative careers. But just trying new things and seeing how you work with it is really, really key. Something else that I think is a really big strategy that I think people need to kind of harness is other platforms like Medium to share like your knowledge. And I know that not all of you are content creators the way I am, or content creators maybe the way Julie is, but something that everyone needs to understand is that you will be, whoa, did you just see the light? I think the sun just went behind a cloud. It just like got dark. You can be seen as more of an expert in what you do when you talk about what you do. So it doesn't matter what you do. You could be a mixed media artist. You could, I don't know, paint rocks. Like it doesn't really matter. But if you start writing about what you do, even in short bits, or talking about it on a podcast, or talking about it on a video like YouTube, there are people out there that are just a few steps behind where you are. Or maybe they need what you have. Maybe they want a lot of painted rocks for their front yard and they don't know who does it well because nobody's talking about it, but you can talk about it. That can be a strategy too, is talking about what you do, not necessarily teaching it. You could teach it. That's another strategy. I think I read an article this past week about when you teach something, you remember 90% of what you teach. And I think that that's really important to remember because we just talked about like, we got to implement some of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so, but by us just talking about it, it's sinking into our brains a little bit deeper, more so that we can actually start to do those things. So if you are really great at something, the best way to do it better and the best way to help others is to talk about it. What do you think about that particular strategy?
Yeah, no, I think that actually ties into what I was saying about Instagram of, if you're just saying, oh, this is a pretty photo of my work, that doesn't show your expertise. It shows the final product, but it doesn't show that you took a lot of care and strategy in getting to that point. And when people can see you are putting that strategy and expertise into getting to the final product, then they're more likely to value your work and be more likely to actually want to hire you. So when you're using your captions or your behind the scenes videos, those are super powerful too. Like people love to watch behind the scenes videos, especially if it's like an industry that they don't know anything about, like to see that they're like, whoa, I didn't know that's how you did it. But that shows your expertise again. It's just putting you as the expert. And instead of just being like, ta-da, I did this.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have definitely talked about that before, and we will be saying that a lot this episode, if you haven't noticed already. But there is really something unrelatable I will say, about just seeing the finished product. And I think that's why on Instagram, on Facebook, on really any platform, I think that's why people are really leaning into the TikTok stuff, because it doesn't feel polished. Like, yes, there are some companies, there are some creators that are doing super polished, super pro stuff on there. But even those are sort of strategically made to look like they didn't really put a lot of effort into it. And so, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I see perfectly put together mothers with their children doing things on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and it's like, oh, we had a wonderful time and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, well, that's really nice for you. But every time I take my kids to the zoo, they're running around like crazy. And, nobody shows that. And so that, and when you see like somebody's really beautiful photograph or really beautiful design, and you go, I don't know how they did that. I can't come up with ideas like that. I don't know what they did to get there. And I don't know their process. And obviously, it's like their secret sauce, so I'm never going to learn. When you can share your secrets, quote unquote secrets, people will trust you more. Trust adds to more business. Trust also like counteracts your own fears. Like, when people trust you more, you start to trust yourself more, and your confidence grows. And then you put yourself out there more, and then people trust you more. And it becomes, instead of like this crazy depression cycle, it becomes this cycle of like growing and changing and being more willing to be more vulnerable, because that's what people relate to.
And from the consumer side too, this may be different if you're just, if you have like, if you're a ceramicist and people are just going to buy it and they're not commissioning anything. But if there's any sort of like interaction between you and the client where you're helping them get to that end point, like they don't know what that process is like. And so for them to be able to see what the process is like, it's alleviating their fears. It's getting them excited for it. And they just want to know, like, how does this work before I give you all my money?
Right. Yeah. And so that sort of that's a good lead in into like strategies for marketing also need to incorporate like money and figuring out what you want to charge, figuring out, like you said, should I spend money on blah, blah, blah ads? Well, I don't know, because it depends on like what you're trying to get. I am in the process. Well, by the time this comes out, I should be done with the process, but launching my first course, and there are things I have to pay for. Like, I have to pay for the hosting of my course so that people can pay for it. I have to pay a percentage to PayPal so that they can process the payments. Like, and if someone, if I were to ask someone like, is it worth it for me to pay, Podia or whatever to host my course, they would probably tell me, I don't know. Like, it depends on what you're trying to do. So if I'm charging for my course, I'm going to need a strategy for how much do I need to charge in order to cover my fees, in order to cover the taxes, in order to actually like come out on top for the time that I've spent putting into this, because also time is money. So how much time are you putting into a thing? Is it worth it? An Instagram ad can usually be made off of a post that you've already done. So a lot of times, like, that's a really great strategy. I've gotten really good traction off of the few Facebook and Instagram ads that I've run strategically over time. Yeah. And I think that just trying to figure out like, well, it's not worth it because it costs something, is not the right direction to take. So thinking about how much money you want to make, how much money you think you can spend is another really important strategy. And I think people don't talk about the money side enough. It's more like, well, you should get on this platform and do this thing and that thing. And it's like, okay, but even if I put my work up on Society 6, they take a percentage. Is that worth it for me? Or is it more worth it for me to put up my own WooCommerce site that costs, that doesn't take as much of a percentage, but I still have to pay them to process the payments, and though that's on my website? And all of those things should be part of your strategy and thinking about what your goals are and how much money you want to make.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think also that it's okay if that shifts. You may start out being really heavy on one particular platform or one way of sharing your work. And then as you grow and your target market maybe changes, then you feel like, okay, I need to shift somewhere else. And
Hmm.
that's totally okay. It just means you're growing. And
Yeah.
so therefore your strategy needs to grow too.
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing. You can have like you can write all the goals down and have like what you think is a really solid strategy. And like you said, it may change. And maybe you have like you kind of have an idea, but you're not really exactly sure. Maybe you feel like your target audience or maybe your research has shown your target audience exists on two or three platforms. Maybe they really love TikTok sometimes. Maybe they really love Instagram for certain things and maybe they really like Pinterest for other things. And so then you've got to maybe experiment just a little bit and
Yeah,
maybe not
definitely.
like dive all in and put hundreds of dollars into, ads on all of them all at once. But like you can spend $5, $10 sometimes on ad placement just to see and get like a taste for like, are they there? Is someone
Hmm.
responding to this? And then you can be a little bit more strategic by just kind of testing things out. Um, I have not I have not used Pinterest a whole lot. I have an if this then that action thing for my face Instagram posts that pushes it to Facebook and to Pinterest. But when I look at my metrics, I get a lot of interaction on Pinterest. And so I've been realizing that it's possible that I need to start shifting a little bit of my strategy towards that because I think that for the inspiration part of my business, turning inspiration into action, Pinterest is literally built on people looking for inspiration.
It literally is. Yeah.
So I want to be the person that's like, hey, you want inspiration? Great. But here, you actually need to do something with it. Don't just sit here and pin things all day. So
Yeah.
there's just a little bit of behind the scenes on like stuff that I'm still working through because, again, it's always an ongoing process as we grow as creatives.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So that's a lot of I think what I have for strategy. I think that if you guys have other questions, like Julie and I are totally always available. I think that if you can listen to the entire season and kind of take notes on certain things that we've talked about, this is going to just explode this particular episode because when you know your target, when you have your
Hmm.
goals, when you can learn how to talk to your clients' problems and struggles, and then insert yourself as the expert by your strategy, by showing up, by doing whatever it is that you are strong in, you will be shocked at how your outlook and how your business will change because people are going to not only see you, but want to use your services, buy your products, subscribe to your podcasts, support you on Patreon, all of the things that Julie and I are still working through. Like
Yes, always.
always, yeah. I just refreshed some of our tiers on Patreon, and you know, thinking about what people need and what people want from us here on this podcast is always an ongoing struggle. After we leave you guys at the end of this season, Julie and I get to talk about like how we can best serve you for next season. So
Yeah.
if you have any insight on that, also we love feedback. We love your reviews. We love hearing from you on what your struggles are because like we're not here to talk to ourselves as much as it may seem so
No.
sometimes. So hopefully you're encouraged about your direction on, self-promotion. And just to boil it down to recap just a little bit, the three things that you really want to think about are your goals, your audience, and playing to your strengths. All of this stuff really wraps up into those things. All of the things we talked about this season wrap up into those things with some relatively small tangents. But that's our season 2 for 2020. And Julie, what else do you have to say till next year?
I don't know. The pressure is on. That's a big
You're on
question.
the spot now.
Yeah. yeah, just keep working at it. It seems really overwhelming. We talked about a lot this season, and there's a lot that goes into having a great brand and getting your work out there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you kind of start at the beginning and you work on the strategy and you work through it all, you will see results.
Yeah.
So just take it a piece at a time.
Be patient with yourself. Be forgiving. Be flexible.
And it's never going to be done.
No.
Trust me, it's never going to be done. So just start working on it.
It's like the D word. I'm like, what is done? I don't say that word around here because nothing is ever done. It's like as soon as one thing is quote unquote done, it either needs to be reworked or I'm like doing something different. So
yeah,
I hope that you're encouraged by the fact that you guys are not alone. We are in the same boat. We are all struggling to be creative professionals, but we're here anyways. We show up for you every week and we want to continue to be here for you. So we can't wait to start planning for whatever we bring you next season. I'm really excited that we had video.
Yeah. And thanks for being with us this season.
Oh, good job. I didn't even say thank you. I'm just talking about us. Thank you so much. We are super grateful. We could not be here without you. We would not be here without you. And hopefully the new year brings a little bit more breathing room as far as getting out of our houses. Maybe Julie and I will actually be together for real. But if not, we will still be here for you like this. And happy Christmas, Merry New Year, and I guess happy belated Thanksgiving and all the things. Yeah, we'll see you next season. All right. Well, that's our episode for today. Be sure to check out our Patreon if you'd like to be a part of our community and make sure this show stays on the air, so to speak. Patreon.com/Design Speaks. Design Speaks is a production of Kenneth Niffen and Dakota Cook. Audio editing by the Podcast Babes. Thanks to Colin from Vespertine for our theme music. Design Speaks is a project from me, Brandy C., and is recorded in the shadow of the watermelon pink sandy mountains near Albuquerque, New Mexico. As always, you can leave a note on Instagram for us at Design Speaks Podcast, and you can find all our current and past episodes at designspeakspodcast.com. Thanks again for watching and listening, and we will see you next season. We're love if we wanna, and we'll get